All right, hello everybody. I'm going to show you on the map where in Panama I am. Then we're going to do some nature journaling exercises together. I've got some cool photos of plants and animals from here in Panama, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. So just to kind of orient everybody, here you can see the Isthmus of Panama. It's the skinniest part of Central America. Down here is Colombia at the top of South America, and up here is Costa Rica. So I flew in to Panama City, and that's the Panama Canal right there. It was the skinniest part of Central America. There's also was a lot of bodies of fresh water in there that made the Panama Canal shortest there. So Panama City is there. I got to visit some cool science stuff happening there. And then we drove all the way here to the Veraguas Peninsula. So this weird peninsula that sticks out here. And I am more or less right in this general area on that map there at a really interesting hotel run by a couple biologists, and I'm doing an artist residency. So I'm creating some um, illustrations for them and doing some nature journaling workshops in the local community in exchange for room and board. So here are some of the pages that I've done so far. Here you can see a little map that I did showing the travel. I'm trying to include maps a lot more in my nature journal pages these days. Just a couple other pages here, and then we'll jump into some exercises that we can do together. So let's do these exercises together. I put together some slides here. So get your sketching stuff out, because the best way to improve your nature journaling and drawing in general is to sketch a lot. I've got some stuff here that we're gonna do. We're gonna do some quick sketching. So get your sketching stuff together. I know that sometimes YouTube can be a passive thing. A lot of social media is just a passive thing, but what we can do now, I highly recommend you try to sketch along with me, and that will get your sketching muscles going and get some good practice in. So here you get a feeling for what it's like on some of the trails here at the Hotel Heliconia where I'm staying. They've been reforesting for about, I think 15 years, around 15 years. And so let's start off doing some unguided contour drawing, also known as blind contour drawing. So the way this works, if you haven't done it before, is you just look at the image or your subject and you don't look at your drawing. So I'm going to look at my screen and make sure my drawing is far enough away from my screen that I don't see the drawing out of the corner of my eye. And I'm just going to start like this, and I'm not going to pick my pen up. You can do it with pencil also. I'm just going to keep going like this, and this can really train you to draw a lot faster. It can also help loosen you up, and it's just a good warm-up. The interesting thing is that I almost end up drawing this way when I do my regular nature journaling also, just because it's so faster, or if you're looking a lot at your subject matter, this can work better. Obviously, things aren't going to line up perfectly, and sometimes it can look totally wonky. That's fine. So obviously the stem on this didn't line up at all. There you can see what mine looks like. It doesn't really matter what mine looks like for this. Let's see, go back to, there we go. All right, so I'm gonna do like two more on this one. If you look occasionally, then that's like modified contour drawing, modified blind contour drawing, which can be a good practice as well. So if you really need to, just look at your drawing a couple times during the process. All right, now I'm going to do one more, and I'm just going to focus on a different part of the leaf. This is actually the leaves of one of my favorite tree species. This exercise is exactly how I started my day today, and you can see here, whoops. You can see here what I did this morning. Just to get me started, I'm trying to get in the routine of doing some of these unguided contour drawing, aka blind contour drawing, every morning as a warm-up, just to improve my drawing and increase my drawing speed. So I was looking at these heliconia leaves at the entrance to the hotel and just drawing these. That was around 6 o'clock this morning, just doing these sort of modified blind contour drawings. And then a little bit later, I saw this rail. This is a gray cowled wood rail, I believe. And because I had been doing that warm up, I was ready to go, and it was really easy to quickly sketch in that rail, that cool bird. Okay, so we did a couple warm-ups there. I'm gonna put some metadata here just so that I remember this was during a YouTube video. And this, if you like this type of practicing and you need help practicing in your nature journal, you can check out my Patreon. I do a monthly study session. It's a little bit more in depth than this, and I do that every month. And even my free Patreon members can join in on those ones. So you can check out more at patreon.com/MarleyPfeiffer. And it is possible to access those even for free members. So check it out. And we do those every month. This month I'm combining them. So this is for any of my Patreon members that are here right now, this is the one that we would normally do for Patreon members on my Patreon site. Okay, so let me make that banner go away. Okay, next slide. So let's do a little bit of a modified blind contour. So on this one, let's go a little bit slower and pay more attention, but at the same time, don't lose the freedom and the looseness that you had before. There's a couple things on this plant that are important to pay attention to botanically, and I'll let you try to figure out what those are. I won't tell you right away, but there's a couple things there's some things when you're drawing plants that's fine to sort of take your artistic license and modify them while you're drawing them. But if you want it to be recognizable what kind of plant it is, there's other things that are really important to not take artistic license on. And so there's a couple ones on this plant that are really important things to try to capture correctly in your drawing. You might notice that after doing that warm-up, this feels a lot easier. If at any point during this you feel like I'm going too slow, you can always go ahead and like add color, or you could take some notes, write down funny things that I said. That's what I would be doing if I was doing this as a class. I might not say as many funny things as usual, but all right, so the important things on this plant are the veination, the opposite leaves. So if leaves are opposite or alternate, those are important things. So the last plant we drew had alternate leaves. If you accidentally, were taking creative license and drew the last plant with, so on the last plant, if you drew the leaves, they have those big drip tips. And if you drew them opposite of each other, it would be a completely different plant, basically. It would be unidentifiable as the plant that it is. This one, however, does have opposite leaves, and it also has this interesting veination pattern. It also has this thing where the stem goes straight into the leaf. There's no petiole there connecting the leaf, so that's a really interesting thing about this plant, and that's the thing that identifies it from other closely related ones. Everything in this family has these weird parallel veins. There's not that many in the temperate parts of America, but in tropical America, there's a lot. So from Mexico all the way down probably to like Argentina and Chile, this family is very important and diverse. It's the Melastomataceae. If you've ever seen there's a plant in the Tibucinia genus. It's called like princess tree sometimes, but there's other things called princess trees, so that can be confusing. But that Tibucinia is in this genus. Sometimes people grow it in their gardens in California, and so that would be in this. Sorry, not in this. If I said genus, I was wrong. It's in this family, Melastomataceae. So I'll just write the family name so you can see what it looks like. Melastomataceae. And this particular one is a Myconia, which is a huge genus. There's more species in this genus than there are in a lot of plant families. Okay, so we did some sort of warm-up drawing there from some of these plants that are growing around me. Now here's a really cool one and sort of challenging. This was supposed to be a video, but it didn't come through as a video. So let's just see what nature journaling technique. Go ahead and use whatever nature journaling technique on this that you want, whatever way you want to draw it or write about it. You could write a poem about it. Obviously, in my opinion, it's not really nature journaling if it's not from direct observation. So there's so much you can't observe because this is based on a photo. You kind of have to trust what I say about this thing. Otherwise, it's just removed from context. It could even be, something made by artificial intelligence to look like a caterpillar. Sometimes it's hard to tell these days, but let's just practice sketching and thinking about how, if we found this in the field, how we would try to convey it on paper. Yay, Sandra's here. Yes, I've been practicing on this one, so it's kind of good for, oh, Jose is here. Hi, Jose. It's a good one to practice that sort of a little bit of three-dimensional perspective on the plant. All right, so there's a little bit of its head that I can see. This would also be a good thing you could do. I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of on this in sort of a written form. I'm going to write some questions. José, tengo una pregunta para ti. Estuve dibujando una miconia que está en esa familia Melastomataceae y quería saber si hasta qué punto en el sur llega el género o la familia Melastomataceae. No sé si allá en Patagonia tendrán tal vez miconia o alguna otra especie de la Melastomataceae. Avísame si sabes. All right, so I just got a couple questions and a few little drawings. I'm gonna also put a note saying that the hairs are not black because since I'm drawing with black, it's hard to draw all those white hairs. So just to show you what I'm talking about, we use black in our drawings to show things that are not really black. So for these hairs, I might just make a note that they're long white hairs. And sometimes you might have to do that in the field. If you have time or if you have black paper, you could use other approaches and you could use white lines. So you could pull out a black piece of paper, stick it on here. I probably have some back here in my pocket or something. Um, Maybe I don't have any black paper with me on this trip, but you could glue it in there and you could try drawing it with white lines, but it was a lot faster just doing it this way. Yeah, exactly, Sandra. De eso estoy hablando. Yo lo hice con mi tinta negra, con mi pluma negra, pero tal vez se podría con papel negro utilizar algo blanco y hacer las líneas en blanco. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so now this is where this is where pattern recognition is really important. If you follow me on Instagram, you might already know this story. So there's something here in this photo that would be really bad to step on. And I was actually walking on this trail. It was starting to get a little bit dark. This was last night. No, maybe this was 2 nights ago. And I can't even see it, even though I know what it is and sort of where it is in the photo. I can't even see it right now. So, but I'll zoom in a little bit. And I noticed it because of the movement. So you should be able to see it now. There's a snake in there. And let's see if we can just do a little drawing of it, of whatever you see. And it's sort of an incomplete. Um, oh yeah, Brenda, that is a good point. You could do negative space. So just let me go back to that really quickly. So like, for example, here, it would take a lot of ink, but you could, and since they are really fine lines, you could potentially go like this and go around these hairs and try to draw them that way. So thanks, Brenda, for mentioning that, because that would be the other approach to do this. Yeah, I'm glad Brenda's here. Taking all those art classes is paying off. So you could do something like that. It's true, and it might take a lot of ink, and you might even be able to at least just sort of get the vibe, and maybe it's the kind of thing where you could just do part of it, and then give the suggestion that, the rest of it looks that way. So thanks. It's always nice having people in the audience that think of things that you don't think of. It makes my job easier. Okay, so let's see if we can do, and one thing you could do on something like this is draw a boundary box, and that's one of the weird things about working from photos is they have been cropped. So as you can see, there's like this weird square around what you see in this image. And so it might be one trick is always to work small, So I'm going to make a really small square, and I'm going to start with these plants. There's one that has, you could even do a sort of a modified blind and contour to get some of these leaves in really quickly. And I think when I did draw this snake in the field, because of course I pulled out my sketchbook and tried to draw this, I think that I did use a sort of, lately, a lot of times when I'm in the field and have to draw really fast, I'm basically doing modified blind contour, and I'm not looking at my page that much, and I'm not lifting my pen or pencil up off the page very much, and it just can make things faster. So on this snake, there's a really important pattern that in this photo you don't notice it that much, but I'll draw a sort of icon version of it here. So from the side, you would see these. Sometimes people use the term saddle to describe patterns on snakes' backs. At least in the US, that seems to be a thing for different types of snakes. And I think widow's peaks might get used sometimes. But this snake oftentimes has this sort of saddle and then these two dots that usually are not connected to the saddle, but are pretty close. So this pattern right here, and from above, that pattern looks like something like this. And the name here in Panama is the same name it is for in Colombia and Ecuador. It has a different name in Costa Rica, but in Panama, Colombia, Ecuador, they call it, and probably Peru also, I'm not sure, they call it X because it looks like an X. And this is also known as terciopelo in Costa Rica, which is the word means velvet. I'm not sure why it's called that. And then the scientific name is Bothrops is the genus, and there's a couple in this genus, but I think this is Bothrops asper, and it's I should double check this, but it is I think the poisonous snake in the Americas with the most fatalities. And it's easy. It's really important to understand a little bit about statistics when talking about things like that. And even when people say something like, this is the most dangerous, blah, 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 or this is like, yeah, I think that's a problematic thing. That needs to be explained or defined because, for example, this one is probably responsible for the most deaths, partly because it's the most common, and it often lives in places that have been disturbed by humans. So it's in places where humans are likely to be. It doesn't mean it has the most dangerous venom. It doesn't mean it wants to hurt people. It happens to be in places. This one got out of my way, and it also made like a rattling type sound with its tail and got out of my way. It was close to like a meter long, but it definitely didn't want to. So I feel like this little square, this is a challenging subject. So if you're struggling with this, that's fine. Part of what's going on here is the snake is in a position and has a patterning on it that makes it hard to identify as a snake. This is not, we're not drawing like something that lends itself to like a cartoon of a snake. So for example, what I'm drawing here, the whole body of a snake extended out over space, that is something, oops, this is the type of snake that you draw and you're like, oh, that was easy to draw. When you have something like this that is more like real life, that's not always easy to draw. So if partway through your drawing you're like, oh, this sucks, it doesn't even look like a snake, it might just be the subject and not you. So try not to worry about that. And I'll show you my snake drawing that I did in the field of this one, and that will give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Especially because I had limited time. So like here you can see this doesn't necessarily, there's a little bit of the head, right? And there's a little bit of these. There's a little cartoon about the tail, but there's, you can see sort of that it doesn't really make like a perfect snake drawing, but at least I got information about the encounter. Oh, here we go. Jose answered my question about Melastoma and Myconia in Patagonia. Gracias, José. Qué interesante. Sí, porque parece que en California también solo se encuentra, solo se encuentra Melastomataceae en jardines. Ok, gracias. Gracias por la información. All right, so okay, so hopefully you got something with that snake. This would be a fun one to color as well. You could kind of get a little bit of the environment of it, the colors around it, and I think this is a cool example of something. It's not a field guide illustration. You know, in the field guides, it shows the animals floating in white paper, and that's not real life. So practicing drawing stuff like this can be a good practice. Okay, now we're gonna go to the beach. So this is a nearby beach called Palo Seco, dry or dead tree. And it was named that for, there was like a very recognizable dead dry tree when some settlers were moving overland in the 60s and 70s to colonize this area. Um, they were immigrating from another part of Panama and hiking overland. So they saw that dry tree and called it that. So this was a very low tide. There's sand and rocky areas, and you can see some ships there. So let's do some sketches from some photos from this area. Here is a good example. Here are some of the people that I was with checking out the tide pools. Here would be a perfect example of trying to get in a sketch that shows the people. And so I know we don't always do this in nature journaling, but I think it tells an important part of the story. So here, what I would recommend, I'll make it a little bit smaller and you can see my drawing as I do it, but having it smaller will actually help. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a frame and I'm gonna keep it small. So we're gonna approach this just like we would a landscape beat though, and then we'll just put some simplified people in the front. That also gives scale and it shows that they're looking at the tide pools, right? So, and one good thing is that that tall guy is sort of breaking the horizon there. So first I'm actually gonna get these trees. The forest comes right down to the beach, which is really cool. I'm just going to simplify that into these sort of blocks here and get that undercut look with the black. I might have messed that up already, but okay, now the horizon is back here, but then this guy is standing, but I want to make him looking down too. And okay, now the rocks. And I might eliminate one person too. There, that person is simplified. That's all I'm gonna draw for her. The scale is gonna be messed up on these people, unfortunately, but that person's just gonna be a little bit of a blob. And now let me just get the pool. A couple of these pools in. These are ellipses. So if you've done any of my landscape painting classes or field trips where I talk about landscape painting, I talk about ellipses in perspective, because if you understand how to draw ellipses in perspective, you can create the illusion of depth. And that's one of the most important things when doing a landscape, is to get depth. And so ellipses are circles in perspective, and they're really important in nature. And that's why if you've ever taken an art class, you have to draw these like cups and plates ad nauseum, because the more you draw cups and plates and tilt them in different ways, or cylinders, you know, toilet paper rolls or something, the more you practice drawing toilet paper rolls in different angles, the better you'll get at cylinders and ellipses in perspective, and they're everywhere. So like these tide pools, the edges of the trees, the bottom edges of the trees, and for whatever reason, the human brain doesn't understand ellipses very well and wants to draw these kind of shapes. See how the ends come to points? Actually, a lot of my tide pools kind of look like that. Or this is the other shape that the human brain sometimes tries to do, is these like hot dogs. So getting ellipses right is really tricky, and you just have to practice it, and it can make a big difference. So I feel good with that right there, and I'm actually going to do watercolor on it. So if you have watercolor, let's just bust out some watercolor on that real quick. Famous last words. Oh, I got some really cool stickers at the I visited the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute. It's their Panama. They have a whole thing in Panama, like Barro Colorado Island is a super famous one. This was their bat lab, and they had all these cool stickers. Here's one dispersing a fig. It's one of the frugivorous bats. And so I put one on my watercolor palette. This other one is from Akshay. It's one of those weird peacock spiders from Australia. So I'm going to try to do this, what's it called, alla prima, and just get the watercolor done in like one pass. So I'll start with the sky. It's been raining like crazy. It's actually flooding in a lot of Panama and Costa Rica right now. But this day we got lucky. The sky wasn't really very blue, so I'm not gonna lie too much in my painting, but just a little bit. And then I'm gonna try to put some similar color in all of these pools. I'm also using my water brush. I have two water brushes at all times. You can see this one's old, this one's new. The old one flows slower. It has all this like bacterial film that starts building up inside. The new one flows faster. If your old one doesn't start flowing slow fast enough, you can put some of your own spit in there, and that will speed up the process of developing this sort of bacterial slime that makes it flow slower. And for whatever reason, it doesn't matter the size. Like you can get the small ones of these, and they still flow really fast. So in my opinion, there's almost no point in having the small ones of these because the big ones come to the same size point. The important thing is how fast the flow is. So that's why I keep an old one, and I put the tape and this thing on it just so that I know, in case it's not dirty enough, I know which one's which. And then at a certain point, this one just starts getting a little bit too old. This one is the one that gets thrown away. Then this one will turn into the old one, and I'll get a new one, if that makes sense. Okay, now let's quickly put in the rocks. I use buff titanium a lot of times for these kind of rocks, and if it's a strong concentration, it's actually pretty dark. The other one would be bloodstone genuine is good a lot of times for these rocks. There was some really interesting geology here. They have, this is supposedly the oldest rock in Panama, and Panama is not a very old, Panama somehow like slid into, there was a gap, there used to be a gap in Central America. There was, would have been no need for a Panama Canal millions of years ago. But Panama like slid in and blocked it off. And at this location, it seemed like there was a lot of slate or some type of mudstone type sedimentary rock. And then there was also some interesting conglomerate rock, which was weird. So I am going to put a little bit of this darker stuff in here. It's a little bit. And then I'll do the trees with just two colors. And the rest, so that was phthalo yellow green, and the rest I'm going to do perylene green. I need to go back here and I was with Muggles, so I didn't really have that much time to nature journal. I had to go fast while I was there. But I would love to go back to this location because the landscapes were incredible and the geology was incredible. I would love to do some longer paintings there. Okay, that feels good. I'm going to leave the humans just as these sort of outlines. I feel good about that. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, hopefully you can take a screenshot if you want to keep working on that one. And we're going to keep going. because there's some cool more stuff. Oh yeah, so supposedly Panama has more brittle star species. These are both from iNaturalist. They have the little copyright information of the people who posted them on iNaturalist. Not everybody who posts stuff on iNaturalist has that. You can see the conglomerate rock there on the left. Let's do a couple sketches here. Oh, Luce is here. So Luce is one of my hosts here in Panama. And she was actually the one leading this intertidal trip. She's in that last picture. She's not a muggle, so she nature journals and does science illustrations. So I spoke incorrectly. All right, so let's see if we can do some sketches. Unfortunately, I didn't photograph um, the brittle stars or crabs that we saw, but I got these ones from iNaturalist, which can be useful, and they're all ones that occur. They should be correct for the area. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a rock. This is going to be just sort of like a collection as if I were actually there, quickly trying to capture things. Some notes about the rock and the animals as well. So, and this is exactly what I did on the actual field trip, is I sort of just did a collection. I would try to get the basic information. So you might even just use notes. If you don't have time to do colors, you can make notes about, oh, the conglomerate rock's sort of purple. Or if you have more time and are faster, you might even try to show that there's that pier in the background to give some sense of scale, and that there's sand all around. All right, now I'm going to try to get a quick sketch of the crab. It's a type of ghost crab. You can see it's balling up the sand and filtering out its food from the sand. So on this one, I basically am doing like a blind contour type drawing. And the good thing about these being kind of small is when an image is small or something is small in the distance, it forces you to just draw the essential because you can't see anything else. So zooming in sometimes doesn't help. It can cause problems. All right, I got a basic crab. Now I'm gonna try to do the brittle star. I'm gonna make the brittle star even smaller because it looks hard. Yeah, so Brenda, as far as I understand about the crabs, from what I used to watch these a lot as a kid. They will walk around on the sand and they sort of skim with their claws the top surface, and as they do, they're sort of putting it through their. You can see there's one of the balls right in front of its face, and it sort of puts it through the mouth parts. And then I think the ball is what's left over once they've already sort of filtered through that top layer of sand. And you can see where the sand has been scraped before. Gracias, José. Sí, las siluetas a veces son una ayuda también porque no me gusta dibujar la ropa. Now, the brittle star could be a problem because it has so many different um, Hi, everybody. Am I live right now? I guess so. Okay, so electricity went out. Um, it's back now, so that's great. Now I'm going to switch back here to my other camera. There we go. Okay, so this is a perfect time to tell you about one of the things that I always have in my kit, which is this little book light. So a little book light like this is really helpful for nature journaling. Whenever I go on trips, nature journaling, I just always have one of these, and you can clip it on to your book really easily when you're working in low light conditions, and it's really helpful. So I recommend having one of these in your basic kit. I had a brand that I really liked for a long time, and it stopped working. It broke uh, like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and since then, this new one I have. There's some things about it I don't like. It's called Vecchia. You can get it on Amazon. I probably have links to it somewhere. There's some things about it I don't like, but it's okay. It works. It does the job, but it's not my ideal one. Um, so anyways, that's that. Okay, let's see if we can get a couple more of these things in. Um, it's funny, the electricity here has been so good even during some pretty intense storms. Haven't lost power until now. So okay, let's skip forward here. And oh yeah, I was working on this brittle star. I couldn't even remember what that was. All right. I definitely always travel with headlamp. It's good to, even when I'm not traveling, I think just knowing where a headlamp is or having one in your car or whatever is super useful. They're fine for nature journaling, but one thing that can happen is the bugs fly straight at the light. So it's good to have a separate light besides the one on your head. So one thing that can help a lot with nature journaling is coming up with tricks for drawing faster. So like with this brittle star, there's probably a way to do this really, really slowly and perfectionistically. And then there's ways that you can make it faster. So for example, what I'm going to try to do is do as few strokes as possible. So instead of drawing the spikes coming off on each side, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to make lines go all the way through, if that makes sense. And that's like half the work because I just come through here once and I make this sort of check mark and it covers the spines on both sides. Does that make sense? So instead of like going on one side and doing them all like that, this will also make them line up better. So that would be doing them separately. Doing them at the same time would be like this. See what I'm doing there? Sometimes you just figure out little tricks like that to make the drawing faster, and that's the kind of thing that can really help when you're in the field. And a lot of these are particulars, though, so there's not universals to all of these things. So what that means is you can't just go around applying the same uh, easy rule to everything. You might have to figure those things out on your own with the subjects that you work on a lot. So if there's certain things you're drawing a lot, you'll figure out what the tricks are. So like I've done a fair amount of crab drawing, so I can figure out some tricks for making that faster. Okay, let's see what else is on our adventure here. Oh, so here's one other thing that I got to do while I was down here um, working with Luce is we visited this local environmental club made up of kids and teens, and they are connected to this turtle conservation project, sea turtle conservation project. And this is a nursery that you see here on the left. So if you want, you could do a sketch of this, and then I'll show a video of these baby turtles moving around. So they're in this protected area. Oh, it looked like the electricity was going to go out again. They're in this protected area. I'm just going to do a quick sketch. These kind of things can be hard to do, hard to draw. Some of these human-made things, or these things where there's like a lot of humans involved or standing around. But trying to figure out how to show them can be helpful, because this is a situation where the human element is a big part, because humans are trying to help these turtles have like a higher hatch rate. And hopefully I'll do a video later that shows more about this process. Ooh, I made that too small. Drawing the basket is a little bit challenging. Also drawing a pile of baby turtles that are overlapping, and some of them are you don't see like all the parts of it, can be hard. You have to just focus on what the shapes are, or you can turn them into a cartoon. Those are sort of your two options, is to turn them into symbols and make it simpler, or try to draw exactly what you see and just focus on the shapes like we did with the snake. Or you could use words and just write down what you're seeing, which you could probably get like 3 sentences to describe all of that. So hopefully you've got something there, because now we're going to just see, I'm going to show you a short video of them, because it didn't work to put the video on here. So let me get that set up real quickly. Okay. Just so you can have the experience of them flopping around. Okay. All right, so let's take a little bit more time to get some baby turtle sketches, and I think these are olive ridley. I can't remember which species. Luce, if you're still there, chime in on the chat. And since this is all from video and stuff, it makes it harder for all of you at home to get the metadata and things like that. But what I do when I'm sketching from a video thing like this, or on YouTube or whatever online, I will just put at the beginning, like this was on YouTube, or I'll make a little symbol for YouTube, or a little computer drawing and the date. And then I'll say, these are things that Marley shared from Panama, because obviously you're going to be disconnected from like the temperature and the weather information and things like that, or even the date. That's why I really think nature journaling needs to be done from direct observation. So what we're doing now is just practicing. Oh, it looked like one of them got flipped over. Did you see that? So I'm just going to write one got flipped over. Another good thing would be to estimate how many you see. All right, there's a few more things, so we've got to get a few more things here, because there's some bugs. Yeah, those are tiny, so those are probably that mesh is probably like a 2 centimeter. Those squares on that mesh are probably like 1.5 centimeters. So the turtles are probably close to like 5 centimeters long. There we go. Lou says they're 16 grams. They're weighing 16 grams when they hatch. Okay, so now we got to look at some bugs, because we set up a black light. So let's do a couple bug sketches before we end here. And if you like this type of practice, I do a study session on my Patreon every month, and it's for free members or paying members. Paying members get access to a lot more stuff, obviously, and also help me make these all of these free videos, over 600 free videos on my YouTube, thanks to my Patreon members. So you can find out more about that at patreon.com/marleypifer. Okay, now I'm going to start a new page and get a couple of these bugs in, and I'm going to go quickly because it's almost 10 o'clock here. But if you like drawing bugs in the tropics, you often have to stay up. If you like either bugs or reptiles or nocturnal mammals, I guess, like bats, you have to be able to stay up at night in the tropics because there's certain things you can only see at night. So what I try to do, because there's certain things you can only see early in the morning too, and I don't want to miss that, I try to take a nap in the middle of the day. So this is a really cool type of hopper on the left. So in the Homoptera order of insects, the piercing, sucking insects, usually not my favorite insect order, but this one was really cool. And then I think this is some type of tiger moth in the middle. Definitely easy to get caught in the patterns and complexity on some of these, but I'm going to try to keep it simple and practice drawing fast. You can use the same trick on the antennae because they're filiform, I think. So you can use a similar trick as on the brittle star to make the lines, but be sure that that's how oh, now I'm noticing the hairs only go in one direction, so that was actually incorrect to do it that way. So I'll just make a little drawing and a note that the hairs only come out on one side. The interesting thing on this Diptera, this fly over here, is there appears to be, I thought there were just red spots were part of it, and I thought that was interesting because I'd never seen one like that before, but on closer look, it looks like there are two red mites on its thorax there. So that's kind of cool. And some of you who are coming on my Costa Rica trip already heard about this when we had our recent team meeting. But this program where I'm doing the residency with Luce and her husband Case, they're both biologists, they're doing a really cool program that's going to be ongoing and inviting artists, scientists, nature journalers, scientific writers, and anybody who produces work like that and is interested in staying here and creating workshops and also creating artwork or infographics for a book that they're making and a bunch of other projects. It's something they're going to be doing ongoing in the future. Christine Elder was here not that long ago before me, and now I'm doing it, and it's going to be open for other people. So stay tuned for more information about that. Maybe, Luce, if you're still here, you could put a link. Okay, let's see. I think we've got more. Oh, here we go. Here's another. Let's do another sort of nicer side view of this one. Oh no, sort of losing it. Losing the proportions. So what does this one remind you of? Is there something on here that reminds you of anything? It reminds me of eyes on the back, and maybe the green and yellow could look like another bug or maybe even a reptile or something. So it seems like this is probably a pattern that is meant to sort of scare predators away. Oh, oh yeah, or a frog. There are a lot of yellow and green frogs, I guess, too. That makes sense. I could see it being a slug too. Those sort of golden spots look like they could be shimmering on a something slimy. All right, this is not my. I feel like my drawing didn't quite do it justice, but I'm probably also getting tired. And at least I got a drawing it. And I am going to do some color because it seems like color is so important. Um, I'll put yellow underneath a bunch of it, and then see if I can paint green around it or something. Might be a little bit risky of a approach, but let's see if it works. I'll do the brown on the edge. The nose is kind of brown too. Get some green under here. Ah! So what I would normally do is I would paint yellow underneath the whole thing, and then I would do green, and paint around these little leave these little circles. But I'm trying to do it all at once, so it's a little bit wet still, unfortunately, and that's causing some mess. But it's good to try things a little bit looser and just and faster and see and actually know like what the limits are and be like, okay, this definitely didn't work. But if you always are like, oh, I can't do that because the colors will mix together and you never try, then you don't actually ever figure out like what the limit is of what's possible. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little bit bigger what my final one looked like. A little bit more fluorescent. It needs to be a little bit less of a saturated green. But otherwise, feel pretty good about that. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks to a lot of Patreon members here tonight. Most of the people in the chat actually are Patreon members. So thanks for the support. And this was basically my attempt to do a YouTube and not let down the monthly study session, but usually these are on my Patreon for Patreon members. But I will be creating a bunch of new content coming up. I'm working on several projects and there's kind of a lot going on. Getting ready for a nature journaling trip in Costa Rica with several of you are going to be on that trip. So really excited about that. And stay tuned for next week. It should be a new video. It'll probably come out early for Patreon members. It might be a short video about me nature journaling in the hot springs in Ecuador. And that was the first time I ever nature journaled in hot springs. And I used one of these waterproof sketchbooks. So that's a possible episode for next week. This is the page I did from inside the hot springs. I also did this page while sitting in a hot spring. So that was pretty cool, pretty epic. And that trip is next summer. We already have 5 people signed up, so it's filling up fast. And so that video will probably come out early for Patrons, or maybe it'll be another episode filmed in Panama. All right, everybody, thanks for practicing with me tonight. Remember that doing practice, sketching every day, trying to nature journal, all of this stuff, you just get better the more you practice it. So keep it up. Good job, and see you next time. Bye.